Hello everybody, so this video is entitled MSTR finally breaks $100. Stretch is also making a comeback. Is MSTR back on track? Is Stretch back on track? Is Bitcoin back on track? Let's talk about this. But of course, this is no surprise to us who follow the stock. We have Bitcoin, the other day, right, end of day, we hit 65,000 nicely. And despite some of the weekend, moves of the boring weekend for Bitcoin often, we're still at 65,000. We're holding 65,000. So this is very encouraging. And of course, as a result of that, guess what? MSTR is also bouncing back. We are now back at 100. Of course, if Bitcoin goes to 70, 75, 80, MSTR will grow accordingly, and perhaps 1.5 times, which is historically what has happened. Historically, MSTR has grown about 1.5 times at the speed at which Bitcoin grows. So if Bitcoin takes 10%, I usually expect MSTR to go up by 15%. At least that has been the usual. Also, what's good is we are finally in the neutral. How many times have I made a video where we're at 39, 38, 37? We're finally in neutral territory. This is a big win. Sailor, of course, tweeting about 30 minutes ago. Well, I guess an hour ago now, tweeting, doing business. And of course, we don't know what he signals. I think that he's going to keep doing more of the same, which is his wait approach, his go slow approach. Strategy is doing well because Bitcoin is doing well. I also want to point out many people talking on X about ETFs buying Bitcoin heavy, especially on Friday. I think this was likely driven by the cold card hack, and a lot of people got fearful of that, and so they sell the Bitcoin on the exchange and they buy it back on the ETF because they want their brokers upsec. They want IBITs upsec, and people got scared of the cold card hack. So I think that's the reason why the ETF accumulation is here. Perhaps more of a reason than just liquidity coming back into the market. Bitcoin has just been slow and boring. 65,000 is really nothing to write home about, but it's better than crashing. We've halted the crash. We haven't had a crash in months now, and so another miracle, by the way, is there seems to be no flare-up in the Middle East over the weekend. So that's another miracle. That's bullish for markets. That's bullish for Bitcoin, and that's of course bullish for lower rates, which is all bullish for strategy and risk assets. So what do I expect? What is my guess for next week? Well, I expect more of Sailor's version of doing nothing. What is it that I call doing nothing for Sailor? A little MSTR ATM. It's getting more interesting. We're at a 1.07 MNAV, so we're selling a $100 bill for 107. Slightly more interesting, but not very interesting. So just a little bit of MSTR ATM selling, I expect that. Just a little bit of Bitcoin selling to tax loss harvest, some of that expensive Bitcoin that was bought above 100K. A little bit of that, and of course, a little bit of ATM, a little bit of selling means raising a little bit of cash, and that cash, of course, to increase the USD reserve, to increase the BTC rating of STRC. That's, I think, Sailor's version of wait and see. And that's the wait and see playbook. And of course, this seems to be working somewhat. We have STRC now at 95. Think about this stock dropping to the mid-70s during the peak FUD. So that's a big deal at 95. This is really something to rejoice at. Will it get back to 100? Of course, that's why I hold the stock. That's why I hold MSTR, because I think STRC will get back to 100. I think Sailor will be able to ATM on STRC again, and he will be able to buy Bitcoin again thanks to STRC. STRC is the playbook, is the way that Sailor can scale and acquire much more Bitcoin. So I believe we'll get that there again. I want to point out also the bullishness, of course, of the bad jobs report on Friday, leading to a drop in the 10-year, leading to a drop in odds of rate hike in September. We now have we now have 55% chance that we get no rate hike in September. Perhaps next week these odds will keep going up, and maybe we'll be at something like 80% chance of no rate hike in September. Plus, we have the midterm, right? So hiking rates right before the midterm would be highly political. I think the market is slowly leaning in on the idea that we're not going to get a rate hike in September. That will be very bullish for STRC. STRC is a credit instrument. It pays a 12% yield. That yield is compared with the quote-unquote risk-free rate. And of course, that risk-free rate going down means the yield of STRC can also go down, which means that the price of STRC has to go up. If we want to see the yield of STRC, the digital credit preferred, perpetual preferred, if we want to see that yield go down, we need to see the price go up. If the price go up, ideally back to 100, where Saylor can ATM again. And I will conclude with this. Of course, I haven't done a full analysis on Strive. I probably should, especially a comparative analysis comparing STRC and Strive, because it seems that it's really STRC and SATA for the preferred seem to be really winning the marketplace. And of course, there's a lot of people comparing STRV, right? Strive. It's actually, the symbol is ASST, if I'm not mistaken. I don't follow Strive very closely, but ASST, comparing ASST, comparing it to MSTR. And so it'd be interesting to compare the two. But I want to point out as an example that SATA is trading at 99.50, 99.47. So 99.50, let's call it. SATA is within 50 cents of getting back to par and getting back to the opportunity of ATMing again and raising funds again for Strive, the company. So if SATA got back to this level, it's certainly, in my view, possible for Stretch to come back to this level too, perhaps with a 3 to 4 weeks lag, perhaps with a little bit of a lag. Getting back to 100 is definitely the way. It's definitely doable. And SATA is there a little sooner because it has a slightly higher yield. It pays 13% versus 12%. And SATA also has slightly less FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. There's still a lot of FUD going on against Saylor on strategy, so it has slightly less FUD. And it has a somewhat simpler balance sheet because it doesn't have any convert. So that's probably the reason why SATA is getting back to par seemingly a little sooner than STRC, but my guess is that STRC will be next. And so hopefully in September, we will have some happy days where we can pull up Stretch Dove live again and look at how much money he's ATMing each day. They're both ATMing each day when we get back to 100. I can't wait for this. But for that, we need Bitcoin to go up, and we need the rates to come down, and at least the 10-year. And hopefully that is coming if we keep seeing some weakness in the job markets, and if we keep seeing some weakness in the oil prices coming down. If we keep seeing both of these things, I think the yields will come down as a whole. And if the yields come down as a whole, that's good for Stretch, that's good for SATA, that's good for risk assets, that's good for Bitcoin, and that's eventually good for MSTR. So anyways, I look forward to the end of the month of August. I guess we're early in August still, but I look forward to the end of the month of August and especially to September to see what happens. This was not investment advice. This is not financial advice. This is only entertainment. I'm hoping you were entertained. Please like, please subscribe, follow me on Patreon, follow me on X. Thank you for watching and have a wonderful, wonderful day.